So we're going to continue with solving by completing the square. We're going to work on problems that have a leading coefficient today. Those are done a little bit differently than the other ones. So I am going to start where I left off. So I am going to start with example number 4. So what you're going to notice about these problems is that we have a leading coefficient other than 1, and it is done a little bit differently. All right, so for our first one, 2n squared plus 8n minus 6 equals 0. All right, first step that you need to do is to get rid of that number. That is not the number that we need for this spot. So we need to move that 6 to the other side. So we have 2n squared plus 8n and then equals 6 because we need to add 6 to the other side. Now, this one, I didn't go ahead and put the blank right there because I have a leading coefficient and I need to get that out of the way. So I'm going to take out a 2 from just this side. So if I factor a 2 out, that's going to be n squared plus 4n. And now I'm going to put my blank in there. So we have to keep in mind that when we have a leading coefficient, that does affect the numbers and what happens in the rest of the problem. So we're going to take that leading coefficient out so that we just have n squared. And then from here, it's similar to what we did yesterday. So now we need to fill in the number that goes right here, but don't jump ahead because what we do on this side is going to be different. All right, so if we think of half of this number is 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to fill in 4 right here, but I put that 4 inside of parentheses that are going to have to be multiplied by 2. So what I really just did on this side was I added 8. All right, so again, I put that 4 right there, but when I go to distribute this 2, I really didn't put 4 there. I actually put in 8. So on this side, I need to add 8 in order to keep these two sides equal. So now we'll continue. It will be the same. So on the right side, we get 14. On the left side, we have a 2, but then we can factor this trinomial to be n plus 2 squared. All right, next thing I need to do is get rid of this 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So that gives us n plus 2 squared equals 7. And now we know that in order to get rid of the square, we need to use a square root. So I'm going to take square root of both sides. And when you take the square root of something squared, you get that something. And then the square root of 7 isn't perfect, nor can it be simplified, but don't forget the plus or minus on there. And then we want to solve for n, so we need to subtract 2 from both sides. So n is negative 2 plus or minus square root of 7. And that is our solution for this one. And again, it looks similar to the type of problem you would get from a quadratic formula. All right, next one. I'm going to move on to yet another page. All right, so example 5. I'm going to show you one that will cause a fraction. This can happen. Nothing to be alarmed about, but it is possible that things just don't work out evenly. So, all right, so 4a squared minus 24a plus 5. Again, if I'm going too fast and you need to pause the video, please do so you can catch up. So first thing I need to do is move that 5 out of the way. So that's going to give me a negative 5 on the right. Now, I have these two that are still going to be on the left side, but it has a leading coefficient. So I'm going to go ahead and take out that 4, which is going to leave a squared minus 6a. And now I'm going to put my blanks. So I kind of did two things at once. I moved the 5 out of the way by subtracting 5 to the other side, and then I took out the leading coefficient so that I just have the a squared. All right, so now we need to think about what number needs to go into this spot to make it work. So half of -6 would be -3. Square that, and that's going to be a 9. However, we just put 9 in there, but the value of it is actually 36. So now on the left side, we can factor this to be a minus 3 squared, and then don't forget the 4. And then on the right side, that adds up to 31. All right, now we need to divide by our leading coefficient, so that will cancel. So now we have 31 over 4, and that one doesn't divide evenly, but that's okay. So next up, we need to get rid of the squared. So we have a minus 3 squared equals 31 over 4. So if we take the square root of both sides, so on the left, the square root of a minus 3 squared is going to be a minus 3. On the right side, the square root of 31 we don't know. Don't forget your plus or minus. So square root of 31 we don't know, but we do know that the square root of 4 is 2. All right, now we need to solve for a. So if we add a to the other side, we have 3 plus or minus the square root of 31 over 2. Now, some books or tests, exams, will have you add these two things together. So keep in mind that we can get a common denominator here. So this is a little bit to the side. So we could write 3 over 1 plus or minus the square root of 31 over 2. So if we want to get a common denominator here, we need to multiply by 2. So that would end up giving us 6 over 2 plus or minus the square root of 31 over 2. And then at this point, we can go ahead and add the 6 plus or minus the square root of 31 and put that over 2. So I will accept both of these answers, either one, but I just want you to keep in mind that if this was your test at the end of the year, let's say, for example, if you got this, and then you look down there and you don't see a 3, you got 3 right there. 6 over 2 is 3. So that's where those two things came from. So this 3 became 6 over 2, so we could write it as one fraction. All right, again, if you need to go back and re-watch any of the information that was in this video, please do, and good luck on your assignment.